Turn your stereos up. Turn your stereos up. You already know what this is. You already know who this is. B-Eazy, that dude, back with another media review. Up, we got Ricardo Ignacio. I believe that he's of Mexican descent, and he's talking about racist Mexicans. So let's see what mi amigo has to say. And when I say mi amigo, I do not know him, but salute to this brother because he is standing on business. I hear him often talk about things that are often ignored or shied away from talking about in the Latino Hispanic community, the colorism, the anti-blackness, etc. I haven't heard everything that he says. I don't agree with everything that he says, but from what I heard, I agree with the overwhelming majority of what he says. Dude is pretty spot on. And let's get right into the video.
I don't understand when I say that Mexicans are culturally racist. They think that I'm calling us openly racist. We are culturally racist, and this is how.
Well, some of them, not all, are culturally and openly racist. And this is where the deflection comes in. Oh, well, every group is racist. Well, if you believe that every group is racist, then you would be admitting that this specific racial and ethnic group is racist. But in order to be racist, you need to have the systemic influence and power to enforce said racism. People conflate someone calling you a racial slur or an epithet with as being the same as having systemic oppressive dominance and control. It's not the same. Mean words is not the same as lynching, redlining, debt peonage, convict leasing, mass incarceration, denial of FHA loans, running highways and turning black neighborhoods into parks and rivers and dams. Things like that are not the same as calling someone a slur. But the high IQ people, you should be able to figure this out quite easily. Let's commence.
How part of our culture is to frown upon dark-skinned people. It's been
So I'm stopping it. I'm going to let the bro cook, but I'm stopping it so that this is fair use, and it's transformative. Some people like to create content where they just upload and take people's content, they play it, say and they don't really give enough commentary to transform it so that they couldn't get a copyright strike. So I know some people are like, well, let the video play, let the video play. Well, these are points that I need to break down and expound on, and I will rewind it back a little bit so that you get the full context of what he is saying.
I'm calling us openly racist. We are culturally racist, and this is how. Part of our culture is to frown upon dark-skinned people. It's been passed down to us by the Spaniards, by our colonizers, by the people that conquered us, taught us that dark skin is inferior, light skin is superior, and things of that nature. We were taught that. It was passed down to us, meaning it's part of our culture. We are culturally racist in this aspect. That doesn't mean I go out in the streets and want to hurt black people because they're black.
Right.
It means that our teachings, the way we're raised, is that we are raised to subconsciously believe that dark skin is inferior and light skin is superior. My grandmother was visiting one day from Mexico. She's never lived in the United States. She has no idea what life is out here. When she comes for a couple of weeks, doesn't really go out. She just comes to visit the family and then leaves, typically. That's how it works. So, another element in our Mexican culture is Univision News or the Univision channel. That channel is run by white Latinos.
He's talking about Una Visión, and think of Telemundo, right? All of the women, or let's just say the majority of the women on there, look like a lily white girl with a hint or a sprinkle of Spanish roots or indigenous or Hispanic Latino roots, whatever, however you would like to classify or categorize them. Mexican is not a race. Brazilian is not a race. Honduran is not a race. These are countries. So when someone says they're Mexican, they're talking about their national and ethnic identity. They're not talking about their racial identity. There are black Mexicans, there are white Mexicans. In fact, many Mexicans actually fought for the right to be legally classified as white. Even in the Treaty of Hidalgo, when there was a Mexican American War, there was much of the West territory ceded, i.e., Oregon, California, Arizona, etc. And part of them losing the war and ceding territory and being paid and compensated, I believe at the time it was between 15-ish mil. Don't quote me on that exact number, but they were paid for it. And also a litany of Mexicans were granted U.S. citizenship under the banner of being classified legally as white. Did they face discrimination? Yes. Did they face even close to the level that Black American freedmen face? No. It wasn't even a scintilla. There's this revisionist history to talk about Juan Crow and we were discriminated against. Yeah, you were discriminated against by other whites and you took it out on Black people. And when they fought for civil rights, their civil rights that they were fighting for was to be recognized as white and to be treated not like the Negroes. That's what they were fighting for. Segregation is cool. Just don't segregate us. Segregate them Negroes. We're not like them. We're white. And you need to adopt us into this, paradigm so that we can assimilate into. So we always have to put that into context. Now, more people are starting to identify as Hispanic, Latino, even though it's not a race. The U.S. Census has it on there as a ethnic group. So when they say they're the largest growing ethnic group, that is true, but it's inorganic. They are being imported in there by the tens of millions. And then when they get here, they are incentivized and encouraged to have babies, typically because as soon as you pop out a baby, this is where the term anchor baby comes in. They are anchored here. So if you have 3 or 4 kids, even if you're not a citizen, people talk about family separations, kids in cages. Oh, well, they have 4 kids, so their 4 kids are citizens, so it would be cruel and unjust to deport them. So that is where the growing of the population is. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. What I'm saying is that's not the organic way of things. Opening the border, flooding the border, just dumping people into a black neighborhood. The black neighborhood gets displaced, and now it's a Hispanic neighborhood. And now it's saying, oh, they're the fastest growing population. Yeah, because you manufactured and socially engineered it to be that way. So salute to, the Hispanics that work hard, have a rich culture, that are not anti-black. So I'm just speaking about the nefarious nature of the great replacement strategy. People chalk that up as a racist right-wing thing about the great replacement theory. Yeah, when you hear Tucker Carlson talk about it, that's what it is. But when it comes to FBA, there is a sinister plot at play. the great replacement strategy. It's no longer a theory, it's a strategy. They want to replace the black vote with the Hispanic vote. The thing is, many Hispanics are a wild card. They vote conservative. So now they have to ramp up their pandering towards them, even though they've been pandering to them for decades. And I'm not saying that that's the only group that they pander to, but they've been pandering to them for decades and they're still a wild card. Meanwhile, blacks have been their most loyal base and the Democrats take them for granted. It's almost like you're with an abusive relationship. This person beats you, brings you diseases, despair, and distress, but you won't ever leave them. So why would they stop abusing you? Because they know how whatever level of abuse they give you, you're never going to leave. So they continuously do that. And then they start courting someone else to give them the treatment that they never gave you. So it would behoove you to leave that person, leave that party alone. And if they do come with an actual tangible and strategy and a way to right the wrongs and benign neglect that they had you endure, then maybe you can consider voting for them. Every person, especially black people, should be an independent. You can vote Republican, you can vote Democrat, you can vote Libertarian, but you should be an independent and allow these parties, if they really are supportive and loving of their base, they really want to fight for the people, then here, you should be competing for my vote. You should be persuading. You should give a persuasive pitch as to why I should vote for you. And if you don't want to do that because you don't care and you think that we're insignificant, then we'll be insignificant and vote the couch or the lazy boy recliner. And people can say that that's foolish and idiotic, but isn't it equally as foolish and idiotic to ignore your base when you need your base to vote for you? I'm just saying, let's commence.
The ideologies and subliminal teachings that they teach is very similar to Fox News. White supremacist ish. They make efforts to depict dark skinned people as criminals, meaning that whenever they even bother depicting or sharing news about dark skinned people, black people, is when they do something wrong, when they commit a crime, a murder, etc. But yet,
And see, that's where the propaganda comes in. So they'll say, oh, look at all these blacks doing the crime. But just ask yourself this: who do you think is more dangerous, violent, and well oiled machine? Who is more of a well oiled machine? The Crips and Bloods or the Mexican cartel, the Colombian cartel, the Irish mafia, the Jewish mafia, the Italian mafia? All of these groups have been historically organized, violent, ruthless. They've also been known to launder money through legal businesses. So that means that innocent people or seemingly innocent people are actually criminals as well, part of their community, because they're being funded by what would be called blood money or dirty money. But since they're washing the money and they're making a legitimate living flipping the criminal money, it's not seen as that way. How many black illicit massage parlors do you know about? That's a legal business getting away with nefarious crimes because they're not black. Right? There's so many clubs, Russian club owners, Albanian, Armenian club owners, and I'm not singling out any of these groups because they're not criminals based on their ethnicity or nationality. Crime pays, right? So if black people are watching every other group see crime pay, and then they get into crime and then say, see, it's just a culture. You're just like that. I say, okay, cool. You're right. Blacks are just like that, right? Our culture is just degenerate because what about Chicago and gangs in Chicago? By that same logic, right? Wouldn't I have to say that Irish people are criminals? Because look at the Irish mafia, and you look at Boston and the people in Southie and all of these anti-black bigots that are, projecting and foaming at the mouth their racism. I have to generalize and label them as all the same, because that's what you're doing with us, right? When I look at the illicit Asian massage parlors, I have to project that onto the entire Asian community, right? All of them are degenerates for sitting there and not holding the Asian massage parlors accountable. That would sound foolish, right? People would say that's anti Asian hate. But when people do it towards FBA, no one bats an eye. There are reports. I didn't report it. Look up the news outlets that talked about that there were some pedos that who have sought sanctuary in Israel. Should I use these reports and findings to paint the large swaths of Jewish people as pedo sympathizers? That would be foolish, anti Semitic, disgusting, grotesque, right? So I got a method that I use called Cecil, SESL as the acronym. Same energy, same logic. Keep the same energy, apply the same logic. If you want to generalize all black people and create us as a monolith and one big global Negro, I say fine. Then I'm going to use the method of Cecil, keeping the same energy and applying the same logic. So all of the Mexicans are just like Sicario. All of you are part of La M Mexican mafia that commit brown on brown crime. If we want to play that game, then let's play. If not, then let's just be a little bit more respectful and sensible when it comes to talking about issues of race, community, and culture. These conversations are very nuanced, right? They're extremely complex. So to just paint them as black people bad, violent, this is their culture, then I'll hold that. But will you hold, the beheadings and Colombian neckties and, you know, um, I seen a report, I think it was last year or a couple years ago, one of the mayors in a Mexican city was killed and beheaded. Just saying, you know, crime is not inherent to one specific race or ethnic group. But let's commence.
When they want to mention anything that has to do with light skinned people, specifically white people, is to depict them as them doing good deeds around the world, feeding the homeless, etc. You get it.
So he talks about when they depict black people, they show them as violent thugs, savages, and criminals. When they depict white people, they're benevolent, pure, angelic. Okay, cool. If you have white worship, fine. But you turn around and blame black people for all of your ills. But when you say, hey, we had to flee our country because of US imperialism, that wasn't some poor black gangbangers in Chicago colonizing you or being imperialist. So you won't get mad at the colonizer. You won't get mad at the imperialist, but you will lash out at the poor, defenseless person who didn't oppress you. Make it make sense.
Univision News is part of our culture. It's our in our everyday lives. Not mine, but culturally as a whole. It's a part of our culture. We're raised on Univision News. So with that said, to prove my point that we're culturally racist and to give an example of how we're culturally racist, one of those times that my grandmother came to visit, she came to my aunt's house. We went to visit her over there. She was watching Univision News. We were all hanging around there. As she was watching the news in the living room, something came on where they depicted a black American committing a crime, which is the only time they'll bring up black people is if they're committing a crime. They will never show a black person doing anything right, anything good. Similar to Fox News, similar to Fox, unless the black person is an Uncle Tom. That's the only time that they'll depict an individual dark skinned person, specifically in this case, a
Ricardo, mi amigo, and this is to all my FBAs and black people in general. You have to retire. Well, let me rephrase that. You don't have to do anything, but I would implore you to retire the term Uncle Tom. The more appropriate term is Sambo. The correct term is Sambo. So people have misused and misconstrued the term Uncle Tom. Think of it like this. If you've seen the movie Django, Django would have been more like an Uncle Tom. I'm not saying that he is an Uncle Tom. I'm just using this as a metaphorical reference. So in the movie Django, Jamie Foxx would have been closer to the depiction of an Uncle Tom. And Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen, would have been the Sambo. Most people would be like, hey, look, man, I would have been like Django. Remember when Django, he pretended to be a slaver. So he had to talk down to his people. He had to oppress his people to prove that, hey, I don't like these Negroes just like y'all don't. Right. But he was doing it so he can actually free some of his people. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Stephen was just a straight up sinister Sambo who was okay with the enslavement. He just wanted to get to the big house, right? I don't care about you field niggas. I'm just gonna be the house nigga. So that's what Stephen was from. So Stephen the Sambo from Django. I think that's more appropriate. So this goes out to mi amigo Ricardo Ignacio and also to all of the FBAs that use that terminology. Uncle Tom, retire it. Sambo is more appropriate. But you can, obviously, there's the C word that rhymes with spoon. Sometimes, these platforms censor it. Sometimes they allow you to say it. Sometimes they don't. But Sambo is more appropriate. And I say tap dancer because people know what a tap dancer is. And if you don't, then, you can use your imagination. But some of these Sambos, they be tap dancing almost as good as the late, great Gregory Hines. Let's commence.
black person as a good one. Oh, the only reason why he's good or she's good is because she believes in our ideologies, things of that nature, right?
So I'm going to pause and I'm going to rewind it back just slightly. But yeah, he's essentially saying that they like token blacks, the blacks that agree with the anti-blackness that they're spewing. And this is why flat blackness is dead. This is why there's a huge delineation movement. But what I call it is the delineation process. This is why that's going on right now, because many of the people that they are pointing to and saying are black or African American are people that are immigrants themselves or come from an immigrant background that are tethers and sambos. So just when someone just says, oh, this person is black, you have to really peel back the layers and examine. Some people are biracial and are white passing, but they have a one drop of blackness, and they occasionally say that they're black on Tuesday and Wednesdays, and the rest of the days they're mixed. And then they like to claim racial ambiguous status, but still say that you're black. So it's a lot of confusion and complexity when it comes to these discussions. And there's a great awakening right now, and being woke is wonderful because what is the opposite of being woke? Sleep. If you're asleep, you're a sheep, you know, and we don't do sheeps over here. So stay woke. Let's commence.
Depict an individual dark skinned person, specifically in this case, a black person, as a good one. Oh, the only reason why he's good or she's good is because she believes in our ideologies, things of that nature, right? She's watching this, and all of a sudden, after they showed a black person committing this crime on the news, the footage, she turned around and looked at us and said, Oye, estos negros solo estorban, ¿verdad? Now, translated in English, hey, these black folks, all they do is get in the way, huh? Now, here's the interesting part. She's never.
Salute to his grandma and, for keeping it real. I don't agree with the anti-blackness, but, at least she's being honest with it. So when he said that there were culturally racist, that's true. And this is an example of her being openly racist. Now you can say that it's subconscious, but she is being openly and blatantly racist. So, and I really salute this brother because I'm sure that this may be difficult or maybe as easy as a breeze for him, but I will say that there is a level of courage that it takes to be able to call out his community, but he's doing it constructively. He's not bashing his community. He's just saying, look, this is what it is. I don't want to have my blinders on. This is unacceptable. I don't agree with this, but he loves his community. Like you can tell that he's speaking out of love versus in our community, we do have many that speak out of love. And then we do have many that are tap dancing sambos that speak for that paycheck. They clout chase because they know that anti-blackness is profitable. Pro-blackness, black advancement is not profitable. They tell you that it's identity politics, is woke. Why do you have to make it about race? And then we say, okay, cool, let's stop talking about race entirely. And then you turn around and they're talking about black on black crime, black fatherlessness, black this, black that. It's like, hold on. I thought you just said that we need to stop talking about race because it's woke. And then all of your commentary is about black fatigue and how black people ain't this. I thought we were all Americans living in a colorblind utopia. And then once they contradict themselves, they get into all of the low IQ. Here, go back to Africa. You lived in mud huts and all this other type of stuff. So they get you to drop your guards down with the kumbaya stuff. And once you drop your guard down, lay down all of your physical, spiritual, and intellectual weapons, then they just attack you and bash you. And then they use the same playbook that they told you not to use. Stop acting like a victim. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Then they turn around and say, we're victims. And no, we don't want to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We need special preferential treatment, even though we've been getting it for centuries, but we need even more because DEI, you mean the DEI that benefits mainly white people? Well, what about affirmative action? Oh yeah, that mainly benefits white people. Yeah, but George Floyd, oh, he's been dead for 5 years. It's the Jews. So it's just like a perpetual cycle of foolishness and buffoonery. So you got to be careful to not engage too deeply with it, because you'll go down a rabbit hole of nothingness, the abyss, the abysmal abyss. But let's commence. Oh, I forgot a point that I want to say. I would love to know from Mr. Ignacio that if his grandmother, like I hear her talking about, okay, the Negroes, they're in the way, but does she ever say that the cartels are in the way and all of these violent gangs who are larger and more organized than any black gang could dream of? Does she say that they're in the way? Because it's a bunch of Mexicans and Hispanics in general that are fleeing gang violence. It's not a bunch of black people that are uh, enforcing and enacting the gang violence on them. It's other brown people, even though many of them don't consider themselves brown, even if they have brown skin. A lot of them, not all, more identify with the colonizer. Even the ones that claim indigenous stuff, indigenous ancestry, many of them, not all, still identify with the colonizer. So you uh pumping your chest for, here, look, my roots come from here. What does that matter if you're just going to side with the people who oppressed you, the people who would be willing to fight side by side with you, the people who have similar melanin to you? You don't want to fight with them. You want to fight against them to help the people who put you in this predicament, right? You say that, oh, look, we were enslaved or we were treated this way. Yeah, it wasn't by us. How about you attack the people who did it to you, right? And it is hilarious, right? Imagine there's a huge bully slapping, the dog piss out of you, and then you look over to the skinny, scrawny person who's helpless and say, "You're in the way. I'm not the one beating your ass every day. Go say something towards the bully." If you were really competent, you would say, "Hey, you know what? Maybe this skinny, scrawny person could help me go take down that bully. They could distract the bully and I come from behind, or they can be on the front line, which we always are, take the bully head on, and I can sneak in some jabs or do this." Like, that's what solidarity looks like. That's what coalition and cooperation looks like. But unfortunately, we have no friends, we have no allies. Groups don't have allies, they only have interests. And unfortunately, Mexicans and all other racial groups have no interest in using black people for anything other than a societal and political doormat. They don't want to unite with us, they don't want to build with us. And I say, hey, that's okay. It's just say it with your chest, right? I'm not talking about the individual allies that are assets to the cause. I'm talking about the collective of each specific racial, ethnic group or corporation, business, political faction. We have no allies, and none of them have any interest in black advancement. If they do want to see black advancement, it's going to be tempered, it's going to be controlled, and is and many, if not most of all the resources, is going to go to a non-black entity, especially a non-black American entity. Let's commence.
Never met a black person in her life. She's never even interacted with Urban, ¿verdad? Now, translated in English. Hey, these black folks, all they do is get in the way, huh? Now, here's the interesting part. She's never met a black person in her life. She's never even interacted with a black American in her life. She has no idea what it's like to have a black friend, a black anything. Because when she comes to this country, she only comes to visit us and then goes back home. She has no idea what it's like to interact with a black person, but yet she already has an opinion about black people as a whole. Why? Because part of our culture, in this particular case, Univision News, since we were children, all the way to teen and adulthood, we have been subliminally taught the blacks are bad criminals, etc., and whites are good, decent, giving, saviors, etc. That is how we are culturally racist.
If the news cycle proves anything, it's that our chaotic world is not
Okay, so I just want to say fuck Ben Shapiro and all of the anti-black Zionist zealots. Just saying that because the commercial popped up. But salute to Ricardo Ignacio. I'm going to be reacting to more of his content in the future. This was just a short one, just to address much of the anti-blackness in the Hispanic and Mexican world. I appreciate this brother for calling it out, and I do think that he is courageous for doing that, because I don't know any other voices that are doing this. If you do know somebody else, drop it in the comments. If you disagree with me, drop it in the comments. If you want to discuss or debate, let me know. But really, there's nothing to debate. Everything I said has been fact checked and it's irrefutable, because it wasn't based on only opinion. I was giving my perspective based on fact. But if you think I had a misstep, let me know. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. You know who this is. B-Eazy. Dat Dude.